Thursday used to be my favorite day. Not anymore. You know how some things don't feel strange until someone else points them out? That's how it started. A random Thursday afternoon. I was working from home like I always do. Slippers on, headphones in, 3 tabs open that I wasn't really switching between. It was a slow day, quiet, peaceful even. Maura had left earlier that morning in a rush, like she always does on Thursdays. "Client lunch? Don't wait for me," she said, shoving a glass container pasta into her bag. She even kissed me on the head. That part annoys me more than I want to admit now. She hadn't kissed me on the mouth in weeks. I didn't think anything of it. Why would I? We've been married 8 years. We're in that settled, half-bored, mostly comfortable phase where you argue about the thermostat and forget to say "I love you" out loud, but you still mean it. Or at least I did. Anyway, like I said, I was minding my own business. Around 12:30, I got hungry and walked to the little deli on 5th. I've gone there for years. Real mom and pop vibe. Chip counter, bad jazz music playing way too loud. I was in line behind this guy, mid-30s, sharp haircut, way too much cologne, who was chatting with the cashier like they were old friends. I wasn't paying attention at first, but then I heard him say her name. Maura dropped it off early today. Meatballs again. She always brings extra. That woman's a saint. My ears rang. I don't know how I stayed calm, but I did. I didn't say anything right away. I waited. Watched him pull a plastic container out of the fridge behind the counter like it was reserved for him. Labeled. Her handwriting. When he turned around, he saw me staring. I didn't think. I just asked, "How do you know Maura?" He didn't hesitate. Not even a flicker of guilt or confusion. "Oh, she's a regular at her office. Brings me lunch every Thursday. Says she hates the cafeteria food." Our eyes met, and I swear to you he smiled. Not like a friend. Not like someone who knows your wife professionally. It was the kind of smile that says, "You don't know what's yours anymore." I left without ordering. I walked 3 blocks without realizing where I was going. When I got home, I opened the fridge and stared at the empty spot where she always kept leftovers for me. The pasta she supposedly packed for herself wasn't there. Neither was the backup container she usually forgot in the back. I waited until she got home that night. She was glowing, literally humming. I asked her how lunch went. She blinked. "Fine. Quick. Nothing special. Nothing special." But someone else had told me otherwise. And I was just getting started. I didn't say anything else that night. I just watched her. Maura moved around the kitchen like everything was normal. She was wearing that stupid navy blouse she only ever wears when she wants to look effortlessly professional. Hair still curled at the ends like it was fresh from salon. She hummed while unloading her work bag, tossed her keys into the ceramic dish by the door, then pulled out an empty Tupperware, and without even glancing at me, opened the trash can to throw it away. That was the moment. Because Maura never throws those out. Ever. She guards them like gold. I once got chewed out for melting one in the dishwasher. "They're part of the good set," she said. But now she just casually tossed it like it meant nothing. I froze. "Why did you throw that out?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. She blinked at me like I was speaking Greek. "It cracked," she lied way too fast. But it wasn't cracked. I saw it. I looked right at it. That thing was fine. Clean even. Like someone else had rinsed it and handed it back with a smile and maybe a compliment. She moved on before I could say anything more, talking about how her client lunch was so boring and how traffic nearly ruined her afternoon. I nodded along like a puppet. I didn't even know who the client was supposed to be. I used to know all the names. She used to tell me everything. Now she was telling me nothing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid there in bed next to her while she scrolled through her phone with her screen brightness on low like I wouldn't notice. I listened to the little clicks of her thumbs. No giggling, no swiping, just silence and soft tapping. She didn't say goodnight. She just rolled over and faced the wall. I stared at the ceiling until 3 a.m. before something in me broke. I got up, walked into the kitchen, opened the trash can. It was gone. She had emptied it before bed. I didn't even hear her do it. My heart was pounding, not just from the lie, from how careful she was, how clean the deception looked. I knew right then I couldn't trust anything she said anymore. I felt sick, literally, like I'd eaten something rotten. But worse than that, I felt replaced, forgotten, like I was just background noise in her life now. A roommate she didn't even find annoying enough to argue with. Ugh. Next day, I called the deli. I asked the owner if I could speak to someone about a catering order. Total lie. I just wanted a name. He put me on hold, and when he came back, he said, "Yeah, that's usually handled by Corwin. He's the guy your wife usually brings lunch to." Corwin, the man who smiled at me like he'd seen something he shouldn't. I thanked him and hung up. I still hadn't said anything to Maura. I wanted to be sure. I wanted evidence, proof, something I could hold up to her face and say, "This is real, and I'm not crazy." But that Friday, something happened that flipped everything upside down. Because Friday wasn't lunch day, but she packed 2 containers anyway, and she left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter. Friday mornings were usually predictable. Maura lacked routine. Same coffee mug, same blazer, same too fast goodbye kiss on the cheek that always left me wondering if she even noticed I existed. But that Friday, everything felt wrong from the second I walked into the kitchen. She was already dressed, hair done, coat on, bag zipped. That wasn't normal. She usually scrambled around like she was being chased by invisible deadlines, but she wasn't scrambling. She was prepared, too prepared. Then I saw them on the counter, 2 lunch containers neatly stacked, labels facing outward like she wanted someone else to admire the handwriting. And right beside them, her wedding ring, just sitting there next to the salt shaker like a cheap souvenir. My stomach dropped so fast I actually had to grip the counter. She glanced at the ring, then at me, and shrugged. "My fingers are swollen today. It's uncomfortable." That was a lie, a lazy one. Maureen never went to work without her ring, not once in 8 years. She wore it hiking, gardening, even swimming once, and she hates swimming. I swallowed the knot in my throat and asked, "Why do you pack 2 lunches?" She barely looked up. "Oh, I didn't. One's for a co-worker who forgot theirs. I'm just being nice." I wanted to ask who. I wanted to scream, "Is it Corwin?" But my voice betrayed me like it always does. I just nodded and pretended I wasn't dying inside. She breezed past me, grabbed her keys, and said, "Don't wait up. Might be a long day." Then she left, without the ring, without a real explanation, without even noticing how hard my hands were shaking. The second the door closed, I opened the top container. My initials, my actual initials, were on the lid. She tried to cover it with her thumb the night before, but I saw it now, clear as daylight. It was one of my meals, one she used to make for me when she actually cared enough to cook. My wife was giving another man my food. I don't know why that specific detail shattered me, but it did. Not the lies, not the lunches, not even the ring. The food, my food. The stupid cilantro lime chicken she made for me because she said it was our thing. Something we shared. Something that felt like home. Now it was his. That was the moment I knew something was happening behind my back. Something she wasn't ever going to admit on her own. And even though I never wanted to be the snooping type, the whiny, insecure husband who checks up on his wife, that's exactly who I became. I waited until she was gone for 20 minutes, then grabbed my jacket and followed her route downtown. I'm not proud of it. My hands were sweating so badly, I had to wipe them on my jeans every 10 steps. But I needed to know where she was actually going. I kept my distance when she turned the corner near Maple Street, expecting her to go toward her office. But she didn't. She walked past it, didn't even slow down. She kept heading straight toward a block of old brick buildings. Nothing to do with her job, nothing to do with clients, nothing to do with anything she'd ever mentioned to me. And then she reached one particular doorway. She knocked, and the man who opened it wasn't Corwin. He was older, taller, wearing a robe. He looked at her the way husbands are supposed to look at their wives. My heart didn't just sink, it collapsed. And Moira smiled at him with a softness I hadn't seen in months. Then she stepped inside and the door closed. I didn't move for 5 whole minutes. I stood there on the opposite sidewalk, half hidden behind a dead tree, watching that door like it was a crime scene. My legs were locked. My brain was screaming, but my body just froze. I kept telling myself, maybe it's a client. Maybe it's work-related. Maybe he's her cousin. Maybe you're overreacting again, Ellery. But deep down I knew I wasn't. She kissed him. It was fast, subtle, not movie-worthy. But it was a kiss. She kissed him as she walked inside, and he didn't even flinch. It was routine. It was familiar. It wasn't a mistake. I stood there trying to catch my breath. My fingers were twitching. My stomach was churning. I felt like I'd been unplugged from the world, like none of this could actually be happening. Not in my life. Not to me. I'm not that guy. I'm not the poor sucker who gets lied to by his wife. I'm not the one who brings her tea when she's tired after secretly seeing someone else. Except I was. 15 minutes passed, then 20. I counted the bricks on the building across from me, just to stay sane. I watched the windows for movement, but the blinds were drawn. I couldn't see anything. Just my own reflection in the glass of a parked car, looking pale, stunned, older than I thought I was. At the 30-minute mark, I started walking. I didn't even know where I was going. I circled the block once, twice, then ended up in a nearby cafe just to sit down and keep myself from losing it. I ordered an espresso I didn't drink. I checked her location on my phone. She turned it off. That's when I knew she was planning this. This wasn't some last-minute oops or harmless lunch drop-off. This was scheduled, hidden, crafted. Thursday was Corwin, but Friday? Friday was someone else entirely. And it only got worse. When I finally made it back home, hours later, after wandering around like a ghost, Maura was already there, sitting on the couch with a glass of white wine, legs curled up like she hadn't just detonated my reality. She looked at me and said, "Hey, I thought you were working late today." I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked her how her long day went. She said it was fine, exhausting even. She talked about meetings that didn't exist and coworkers I knew for a fact had been out of town this week. It was like watching a magician fumble through a bad card trick. But the scariest part? She didn't blink. She didn't stutter. She looked me in the eye and told me lies with the same face she used to say I do. I nodded along. I even faked a chuckle when she complained about traffic. But in my chest, something snapped. Something quiet but permanent. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't want to see her spin another story, or worse, cry and pretend I was making things up. No, I wanted the truth, not the performance. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I called someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year, my old college roommate, Milo, who now works as a freelance tech consultant. Back he used to help people recover deleted data from phones for companies going through legal audits. Now I just needed him to teach me how to clone hers. And God help me, I was ready to find everything. I never thought I'd be the guy doing this. I used to mock people who said, if you have to snoop, the relationship's already over. But the thing is, sometimes you don't know how over it is until you finally look. Milo didn't ask many questions when I called, just said, text me the phone model and meet me at my place after 7 o'clock. He was always that kind of guy, sharp, private, good with secrets. Back in college, he used to jailbreak phones in under 10 minutes for fun. Now he charged a lot more for the same skill. I showed up with a burner phone I'd bought that afternoon in cash. Milo glanced at it, nodded, and said, "You sure you want to know?" I didn't answer, just handed over Maura's phone. I'd waited until she was in the shower that morning and made a perfect excuse about updating our cloud backups. My hand was shaking the entire time I held it. It took him maybe 15 minutes. He transferred everything, messages, call logs, even deleted content onto the burner. Then he handed it back like it was a loaded weapon. "Whatever you find," he said, "you didn't hear it from me." I didn't even make it out of his building before I started reading. It started slow, texts with names I didn't recognize. Some are boring, others not so much. One guy saved as he had entire threads going back months. Compliments, jokes, inside references, pictures. Not explicit, but intimate. The kind of photos you take when you're trying to belong to someone. The kind of smile she hadn't given me in years. But it wasn't just one guy. There were three. C was Corwin, Thursday lunch guy. W was Warren, the man with the robe from Friday. And then there was G, which stood for Gideon. A name she hadn't mentioned once in our entire marriage. Their messages were full of poetry quotes and late-night song lyrics and references to weekend plans that never involved me. That was the moment the pit in my stomach turned to concrete. I wasn't just being replaced. I'd already been replaced. Multiple times. On a schedule. Like I was the background noise she needed to cancel out with other voices. I found messages from last Tuesday where she told Warren she wished she could freeze time with him. She called him her calm, her real world. Meanwhile, that same night, I'd made her favorite lemon pasta and rubbed her shoulders while she complained about office stress. The disconnect nearly made me throw the phone. But I didn't, because buried deep in the archives, messages from months ago, I found something else, something worse. There was a thread with a contact named M.A. Temp. The tone was different, clinical, careful. Hidden in between check-ins and quicker you sure texts were screenshots of me. At home, on the porch, in the grocery store. I remember the sweater I was wearing in one of them. It was raining. I had no idea anyone was even watching. There were notes, too. Comments about my routine, my habits, how often I was home, how often I wasn't. One line sent my heart into my throat. He's harmless. Predictable. Let me handle this. Maura had been reporting on me, or at least explaining me to someone. Like I was part of a plan. This wasn't just cheating. This was something deeper, more coordinated, like she was building a whole other life behind a two-way mirror, and I'd been the only idiot who couldn't see through it. I couldn't sleep that night, not a second. I just sat on the edge of the bed in the dark while Maura snored lightly beside me, breathing like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't torn our marriage to pieces and swept the shards under the rug with a forced smile and the scent of vanilla. Shampoo. She said I was harmless. That word looped in my head on repeat, taunting me, gnawing at every shred of dignity I had left. Harmless like I was a prop, a harmless man in a harmless house. Too slow, too clueless, too emotionally limp to even matter. I'd become background static in my own life, and she thought I wouldn't notice. I noticed now. The next morning, I didn't confront her. I couldn't, not yet. I needed to know everything because that word, that label, it told me there was more, that I'd only scratched the surface. So, I did something I hadn't done in a decade. I called in sick. I told my school I had a fever, something contagious. In truth, I was burning, just not from illness. The moment she left for work, wearing lipstick she hadn't worn in over a year, I went through every drawer in the house, the ones I never opened, the ones she always said were just receipts or too messy to bother with. But I bothered. Oh, I bothered. In a locked box under her side of the closet, I found a burner phone, the same model as the one Milo helped me clone the night before. This one wasn't password protected. Maybe she thought I'd never find it. Maybe she was getting careless. Or maybe she wanted me to find it. Inside were messages that weren't on the sync clone, stuff she must have deleted before her regular backups. I read them all. I read things that I don't think I'll ever forget. Conversations where she mocked me, called me predictable, soft, a sweet pillow of stability when she needed a cover story. She wrote things like, "He won't do anything. He never does, and we're safe." He's not the type. But it got worse, because mixed into the text were photos. Not of her or of me. Sleeping, cooking, one sitting in my car waiting outside the pharmacy. These weren't taken by her. They were sent to her by different numbers. No names, no saved contacts, just strangers, anonymous watchers. Some of the timestamps were from days I was with her. She was sitting next to me on the couch while someone was photographing me through the window. I felt sick, paranoid, like the air in our house was poisoned. I checked the vents, the smoke detectors. I took my laptop apart. Nothing made sense. I wasn't just being cheated on, I was being watched, recorded, tracked. And for what? By noon, I realized I couldn't stay in that house. Not another second. I packed a duffel bag, grabbed a clone phone, the burner, and the original photos, and I left. Didn't leave a note, didn't slam the door, just walked out like a ghost finally stepping out of his own grave. I drove 3 towns over and booked a cheap motel under a fake name. Milo called me 5 times. I ignored him. I didn't want help. I didn't want sympathy. I just wanted clarity, answers. That night, I opened the burner again. There was a voicemail from one of the hidden numbers. Less than 10 seconds. I hit play. Static. Then a male voice. He's starting to figure it out. What do you want me to do if he asks the wrong questions? Click. That was it. My hand was shaking so hard I dropped the phone. This wasn't just infidelity. This was something else entirely. I sat on the edge of the motel bed, that scratchy floral comforter pressing lines into my elbows, while the voicemail replayed in my head on a loop. He's starting to figure it out. What do you want me to do if he asks the wrong questions? It didn't even sound threatening. It was casual, kind of like the kind of tone someone uses when they're confirming lunch plans, not discussing how to deal with a suspicious husband. And that scared me more than anything, because it meant I wasn't seen as a threat, not a real one. I wasn't even part of the equation anymore. I was a variable, something to contain, something to account for and handle. That's when I knew I wasn't just dealing with betrayal. I was part of something structured, and Maura wasn't alone in it. The photos, the deleted threads, the burner calls, they weren't just signs of an affair. They were evidence of surveillance, documentation, like someone had been building a file on me. But why? I'm a middle school music teacher, for God's sake. I play piano. I hate confrontation. I cry during dog commercials. I'm not important enough to be targeted for anything unless I was being used. The thought made me nauseous. I barely ate that day. I paced the room for hours, every now and then jolting from the sound of cars pulling into the lot outside. I started checking under the bed, behind the mirror, even inside the vents like I was in some cheap spy thriller. But I wasn't paranoid anymore. I was justified. Everything I thought I knew about my life had been disassembled piece by piece. And Maura, she was the one holding the screwdriver the whole time. By nightfall, I knew I had to go back, not home, but to the building, the one where I saw her kiss that man in the robe. I needed to know who he was. I needed a name, a job, a connection, anything. I parked 2 blocks away and walked with my hoodie up, head down. It was around 9:40 p.m. The building's lobby lights were dimmed, and the security camera over the front door looked fake, too dusty, too old to be real. I took the stairs 2 at a time, heart pounding like it was trying to escape my ribs. The door she'd walked into was 3C. I listened for noise. Nothing. Then I slipped a folded business card under the door. One of mine from when I was freelancing music lessons, and I wrote on the back, "I know who you are. I know what you're doing. Call me before I call them." I didn't know who them was supposed to be, but it sounded right. Then I left. The next morning, back at the motel, I woke up to a call from an unknown number. I let go to voicemail. And this time, the voice was Morris. Calm, detached, measured. "Ellery, if you're listening to this, I want you to stop digging. Please. It's not what you think. But if you keep pushing, people will get hurt. I'm not threatening you. I'm warning you. Go. Home. I'll explain everything." I played it again and again, but the part that stuck out wasn't the warning. It was what she said at the end, almost whispered, like she didn't want whoever else was in the room to hear her. "You were never supposed to find out." Her words played in my ears like static, stuck somewhere between confession and warning. You were never supposed to find out. At first, it crushed me, but the more I thought about it, the more it empowered me. Because if I wasn't supposed to know, then learning the truth was my way out. My escape. I didn't call her back. Instead, I forwarded the voicemail to Milo. Within minutes, he texted me back, "She's not working alone." The guy in the robe, his real name is Trevor Hanley. Ex-corporate security. Laid off 3 years ago, but he's been popping up in some shady contract work. Maura's name shows up once in a consulting invoice. I asked him what it meant. His answer could be blackmail, could be a fake identity, network, could be something even messier. But you recover. You were normal. That made her look clean. Suddenly, everything made sense. The Thursday lunches, the lies, the surveillance. I wasn't just a clueless husband. I was her alibi, her shield, her front for something I still couldn't fully name. And that would have been enough to ruin me. But it didn't, because for the first time in years, I wasn't numb anymore. I wasn't making excuses for her or downplaying what I felt or living on autopilot while my marriage quietly rotted behind perfectly staged photos and empty anniversary dinners. I felt everything now, and strangely, that gave me back my power. I called a lawyer that afternoon. Not just any lawyer, a friend of Milo's who specialized in sensitive separations. Someone who'd seen cases where betrayal came with layers, contracts, aliases, and things most people couldn't even pronounce. I laid it all out. Every voicemail, every message, every photo. And to my shock, he didn't seem surprised. Honestly, he said, "You're lucky. Most people don't find out until it's too late to walk away clean." And that's exactly what I did. I walked away clean. 3 weeks later, the divorce papers were served. No fight, no calls, no final conversation, just a signature in silence. She didn't contest anything. I think she knew she'd lost the ability to manipulate me. And me? I moved 2 hours north to a quiet town, where no one knows my name. I teach music at a community center now. I don't make much, but every student smiles at me like I matter, and no one's taking pictures of me behind my back. One afternoon, I was playing piano in the lobby when someone walked in late for her first lesson. She apologized, flustered, holding a violin case and a coffee in each hand. "You look like you need this more than I do," she said, handing me the second cup. I laughed for the first time in months. It was real. It didn't feel borrowed or rehearsed. Her name's Blythe. She's kind, a little chaotic, and asks way too many questions about obscure jazz composers. And not once has she made me feel invisible. I told her everything last month, the whole story. She didn't flinch, just said, "Wow, you've been through it, but you're still here." Yeah, I'm still here. And for the first time in a very long time, that feels like enough.